Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Mysticsense series on past life regression. Today with us is Gaia Healing from Mysticsense. So, Sienna, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. I've been working as a psychic for a little over 4 years now in energy healing. Recently just got my Reiki master level, so very excited about that. Very excited to be here on Mystic Sense series to talk about some exciting stuff today.
Excellent. Congratulations on your Reiki master level. That's a big accomplishment.
Thank you so much.
Great. So we're going to dive into our past life discussion with the first question. How does exploring past lives provide insights into current patterns, fears, and relationships?
Yeah, so with past lives and insight, I always feel that, the whole concept of our life is patterns and relationships and everything like that. And I feel that past lives really bring a very holistic, well-rounded view of patterns in relationships, how we view ourselves. And I also see, in terms of insight, it brings in a more forgiving sense when we're looking at these maybe more difficult patterns or things we don't understand, when we're able to look at it from a different lens or in a different situation of how it may have occurred in a past life or with an ancestor or something like that. Because by some definitions, that can be a past life as well. We're able to understand it more and kind of have a little bit more love for ourselves and how deeply ingrained a pattern or a situation can be.
Lovely. That's a great explanation of it. Would you like to talk a bit about the connection between ancestors and past lives? Because I know you briefly touched on that. I think it's very interesting.
Absolutely. So this is just something that I've noticed in my work. I know that a lot of people have different viewpoints and everything like that, but it's actually interesting how, our cells, I think it goes back to, our cells have memory of like what, when we were in the womb of our mother, of what she went through. And I believe, I'm not sure the exact science, but we actually have, our cells have memory from our grandmother even. So we are really spongy as as human beings in souls, especially. A lot of my clients are so sensitive, and so we can retain cellular memory from experiences that even our grandmother has, by science. But it's, spiritually speaking, if you're speaking in the concept of past lives, our ancestors are just, I view them as different iterations of us, and they're with us all the time. I see so much support coming from ancestors when I'm working with clients. So I really view us all working together and as one, and then passing on these memories and insights. And it's really such a beautiful connection. So oftentimes when going into past life regression, um, view like getting an insight, it can sometimes be from an ancestor that we're really deeply connected with, but the energy can also be kind of laced in the same way that a past life would be. And that's our family, that's our lineage, we carry that with us. So that's how I view it. Is it's like this, you have this deep connection and you carry that with you, and it's very similar to a past life in the way that it affects us today.
Thanks so much for elaborating on that. I have not heard of that before, and I find it absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Can you share some examples of how understanding past lives has helped individuals in their current lives?
Yes. So back to how I was saying, it gives you a more well-rounded view on, say, a pattern of a relationship pattern with having a certain kind of relationship with a partner. If you're tracing it back, it it sorry, what was the question?
Sharing examples
Example.
of how understanding has helped people in their
Oh,
current
I
life.
see. Okay. So when a client is able to see, like tracing the energy back or starting to understand, it's really validating. And it also, as I was saying before, allows us to look from a different perspective because we're so hard on ourselves. Like if I don't think anyone is more hard on anyone else than they are on themselves sometimes. So when you're able to almost look at a different version of you, having a different life experience, I find that there's more compassion and we aren't so down on ourselves. So I've seen a lot more healing with clients, being able to go, oh, it's so validating. That's why this is so hard for me, because this has been going on for lifetimes. It's not so simple of just, stop smoking or start going to the gym. It might be this really deeply ingrained habit that's been going on for a really long time.
Interesting. That brings up a really good point that I'd kind of like to talk about is I lost my train of thought for a second. These breaking patterns. It just reminded me when you said that there's a lot of generational trauma people have and a lot of patterns that they're stuck in. And when you dive into these past lives, it allows you to have that aha moment that you realize the big why these things are happening to you. A lot of people go through life, they say, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I having such bad luck? Or why can't I figure this out? And it's the past. Sometimes the past lives hold that key, and exploring that really helps you not only realize why you're having these issues, but also how to break it.
I agree.
Okay.
The key really lies in the root, and I feel like a lot of the root can be found in the past lives. So tracing it back.
Yeah, for sure. So what concepts of past lives and reincarnation are important for listeners to understand?
Well, first of all is, I understand that past lives can seem a little, it's the unknown, right? And so anytime we jump into something that we don't understand or we don't know, it can feel a little scary of what am I going to see? And I think that one of the most important things for someone to understand that may be new to this is that you will not see anything that is not resonating with you or you're already with right now. And it may be fundamentally different in terms of details, but it's not going to be so abstract that you can't comprehend it and it will cause you any harm. If anything, it's just going to provide you a deeper understanding and, like I said, a more holistic view. So that's the main thing that I would say, is that it's not going to be anything that is going to harm you more. Like, especially when we're entering, when you're tapping into these in, say, hypnosis or guided meditation or using Akashic records or something, you're kind of in a heightened awareness, and you're not going to be affected or negatively affected by it, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm trying to say is what comes from it is awareness, and you're not putting yourself at risk by accessing these.
Yeah, very important, very true. These are your past lives, these are your experiences. And if you don't believe in reincarnation, you can think of this as alternate timelines. Like it's still you, whether you're here today or whether you're here in the future or the past, it's your energy that you're accessing.
Absolutely.
I want to apologize if she's making too much noise.
Oh, you don't have to apologize to me. Mine's downstairs upset because he just had a bath. So
yeah, she's having a snorty day with her nose. So okay. What techniques can listeners use for past life regression and how do they work?
Well, one of my favorite actually books that got me into exploring past lives and everything, I believe it's called A Radical Approach to Akashic Records, because Akasha was really what introduced me. And I remember reading the book in the airport, and I decided to try in the airport, which I don't recommend. And my flight was boarding, and I was really deep in a meditation, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to board this plane right now. There's so much coming up. I believe it's it's a radical approach to Akashic Records by Melissa Fike. And it's really good for beginners if you want to do it at home. I think that she explains it very well. You can also do guided meditation, hypnosis. There's a lot of different ways to really just start to explore, dip your toe in without taking on too much. So
Thank you for sharing that. Very interesting. So make sure to check out that book if you're interested in Akashic Records, A Radical Approach to Akashic Records, correct?
yeah, it's really good.
And then who was the author? One more time, please.
Melissa Fike.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So definitely check that out if you'd like to go the Akashic Record route. Meditations can be really great as well if you're beginner guided meditations, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So right now, guided meditation, how does guided meditation or hypnosis aid in accessing past life memories?
Right. So with guided meditations and hypnosis, I really think, the key of working with a practitioner is getting this container, because we all have this power, we all have intuition, just like it's just having the container and holding the container. And I feel that by either you can do your own guided meditation too, but if you work with someone who's able to put you into a hypnosis or put you into a guided meditation, and they actually are quite similar, you have more of a chance to relax. And that's really a key, I think, to getting into past life regressions and things like that, is relaxing and letting these things come up without going, oh, that's crazy. I must be dreaming or something like that, because it's very dreamlike. So I think that guided meditations and hypnosis really give you a chance to relax and let yourself just see these. Maybe you will feel them, maybe you will hear them, maybe you will see them. Everyone is so different. It really gives you a chance to relax and let whatever might be, nudging you come up.
Very true. Yes. Thank you for that advice. And I want to add, you don't want to try past life regression like if you're driving, or you're at work, or you're traveling. It's probably not the best time to do this, because it does put you into a very deep trance. And it can be hard to focus, especially when you're receiving lots of downloads of information.
Absolutely.
Great. So could you please elaborate on the process of exploring and interpreting past life memories?
Yes. So the first key of what I was just talking about is just letting things come up, which is, I find, to be probably maybe the most difficult part in the beginning, just because it's really just letting go of the judgments and letting things come to you. And interpreting them sometimes they can come up more metaphorical. It might be a vision of a certain object, and that might be tied to a certain experience. So really going into what's coming up, where is this maybe vision leading me to, and just being more curious. And I really invite people that are exploring this kind of work just to be curious and just to be open, and not to place too much pressure on yourself. It's really about, when we're looking at past lives or anything like this in meditations or emotions, it's really about just exploring and going through the journey. And you can always analyze later. So I think that's the key, is just letting it opening the flow, and you're going to get more information that way.
Great. Yes, the flow is an important part of this. Now, you mentioned interpreting later. Would you
Mhm.
recommend people write it down after they do the meditation, like with a notebook?
Absolutely. I think thank you so much. Because I struggle with that is when I get in, if I'm actually working with a client, I write down as I'm going, because when you're deep in, say, a trance state like you're talking about, or and you're in another realm or space when you're um in these regressions or meditations, it's very common to not remember. And so it's better to write it down sooner or during if you can, depending on whatever you like to do, because there is a good chance you'll forget quite a bit of it, or at least a few details.
For sure. And I want to mention that these experiences come to people differently. Not everyone's going to see something. Some people will hear it. Some
Yeah.
people will, see it. Others will feel it. Would you like to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I it's like the concept of, for instance, on Mysticsense, a lot of the different psychics, they might be clairsentient, which is you have clear feeling, or clairvoyance, you have clear seeing. So it's essentially heightened senses, of the senses we already have. And certain people have more of one sense than the other. They might have a mix of a few. And so it's really learning your unique language and not being frustrated if you don't see. Maybe you're not supposed to in this situation. Maybe you'll see in another situation. It doesn't mean that you're not intuitive. It doesn't mean that you can't tap into it. It's just we all have our own language, and it's a beautiful process. So, like I said, just explore. And also you might hear, you could taste, you could smell. You just never know until you're in there. So
Very true. Good points too. So, how can individuals heal unresolved issues from past lives for their present well-being?
right. Well, I think that it is helpful to, like as we said, to go in and be curious and explore. And whether it's, reading a book and exploring it yourself, working with a practitioner, as we spoke about, writing it down, having a journal. Oftentimes, when we start to work with these energies and get into touch with them, they get really excited that they're being heard, because they've been trying to be heard for a while. So, a way that you know that you're being called to heal something is once you start to tap into it, you're going to start being reminded of it more. It's just going to start coming up a little bit more and bubbling up more. And really, healing it is, I've learned, it's not about ripping something out, or we need to get this pattern out, we need to not act like this anymore. It's really about just listening to the story, or like I said, being curious and just sending it love, and knowing that that's a part of you, and just letting it express itself the way that it needs to express. And I think journaling is very helpful in situations like this. I'm a big advocate of the journal. I think meditation is very helpful if you start to feel like you need to ground after you tap into these. It's very helpful. But I think that everyone's experience in healing is very different. But I think that the key in healing these is just allowing the emotions, or the situations to come up the way they need to, and just loving them, loving yourself through the whole process. And eventually there will be less and less.
Very true. The love is a very powerful vibration. I feel a lot of spiritual people are aware of that already. But oftentimes we don't apply it to problems
Hmm.
in life, like especially if your past life is causing issues in your current life, applying that love and that compassion and all the different things that come with the love understanding yourself, understanding why and how this is an issue for you, and accepting it and showing that compassion and showing that love towards yourself, towards those issues that you have, can go a really long way to help you to resolve them and overcome them.
Absolutely.
Yes. So our next question is, what are some effective techniques for releasing past life traumas and integrating lessons into the present?
Well, I would say, traumas are difficult, right? Well, we're told that they are. So they become more difficult when we tell ourselves that they are. But they're very delicate. So it can be very helpful to have a trauma-informed practitioner or someone that's used to working with a situation that you're dealing with. Everyone is so unique. And a really helpful technique that I use and recommend for my clients to use is body scanning. And that's something that you can do in meditation. And for instance, if there's perhaps a situation in your life or a past life that you're examining that now has grown tendrils into your current life, you say you feel it in your heart, for example, really scanning there. And it can be really difficult to lean into these difficult emotions. But if you're in a safe space, say laying in your bed or sitting in an office with a practitioner or on the phone, just allowing yourself to feel the emotion that may be stored in the heart and giving yourself permission to feel it, and opening yourself up to it is a beautiful practice, and not being too hard on yourself that you need to get to a certain place with it, because realistically it's a part of you, and it's just opening up whatever you need to open up with the emotions and just sitting with it. And when it starts to get a little bit more difficult, just breathing and experiencing it, because otherwise it gets very bound up energetically and it feels hushed away. So that's what I've noticed a lot with trauma work with clients, is really just allowing this energy to exist and breathe and maybe stretch a little bit. Maybe we need to stretch. It really allows for more movement and more life into the area, as opposed to being kind of hushed away and into darkness. And we don't want to look at that. It's good to just open up the area and just go through your unique process with it. So that's what I have seen results with.
Very excellent. Thank you. I like that you bring up the trauma-informed aspect of it, because a lot of these issues, especially things that are lasting long time, lifetimes, there is some major trauma that caused that in the first place. Even if it wasn't your past life, even if it was decades ago, maybe it was a great-great-grandparent that went through it.
Mm-hmm.
That trauma needs to be addressed and it needs to be healed. And if you're not allowing that, if you're not doing that work, it's just going to continue these cycles.
Absolutely.
Even if it's really unconscious or it's really subtle, it'll still be there until it's addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is a little bit off of the topic, but we have lots of time. So do you think shame and guilt affect the past life healing process?
Absolutely. And I, in my opinion, these are some of the most difficult emotions to work with, because they're very sneaky. I would say they're some of the most sneaky emotions that are there. They have a different vibration. Those are more in the lower chakra areas. So shame is more its inability to look at it more. And guilt is if you look at it, it's you have this reaction. That's how I experience them. So it does inhibit being able to look at situations that perhaps we're already having a hard time being open to. So it affects openness, I would say.
Interesting. And the reason I bring that up is because you mentioned the tendrils reaching out from your past lives affecting our current life. And I just love that analogy. I kind of saw like an octopus or like a big plant reaching out with the vines. I love that because I resonate with it. I think it's true that the things we do in our past, they do affect our present because we did them. Our energy is involved with it. We're entwined with it. And recognizing those tendrils and following them back to where they started. And I know for me personally, doing a bit of past life work, the first time I had a past life experience, I was meditating, and it wasn't intentional. It was just my regular meditation. I was meditating a lot at that time, and I saw a vision of a past life of mine, and it really shook me. And I felt fear, but I felt a lot of rage, and I also felt almost a sense of guilt for it, like I didn't do the right thing or something. And be prepared for that. I just want to say, be prepared for that going into your past life work. These feelings, shame, guilt, regret, that does come up, because those are the things we're looking into. Those are the things that oftentimes, for me, in my opinion and my experience, I saw those things because they were affecting me in my present life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. I'm so happy you brought that up. I can definitely, or there can be a little bit of shock too sometimes, because you're like, what? Wow. I had no idea. And oftentimes, it's like, because you're talking about the guilt and shame, it could be from this life that, that the guilt and shame is maybe stemming from, or maybe there's a really big root there. So I completely understand that. Oh, that's also you're bringing like up a really good point. Sorry. of like, if you're following a tendril back in this kind of work, it's just getting to the root. Like the root is, like with a tree, where the life comes in, right? So it's going to be stronger at the root. So it might be a little bit more intense in there. It might be. So not in a bad way, because you're already experiencing it, but you will find the epicenter where it's living, and kind of where it's stored.
Definitely, for sure. It definitely was more intense for me the more I explored that past life. You can also, we have an episode on astral projection. You can use astral projection to explore your past lives.
Oh, that sounds like
That's how I did it. And it's really intense. And like I said, there's many methods, or I think you said that, Sienna, there's many methods to do this work. You can meditate, you can do progressive relaxation, you can do visualizations, you can have someone guide you. For me, I was already experienced with astral projection, so I actually went there to my past lives and stepped into them and watched them.
Wow.
That's, if you're into astral projection, that's a way you can do it. It was very intense.
Yeah, I bet, because
No,
in the
it was
room.
very intense, but I understand a lot of my challenges much better because of that. So you want to know yourself too. I think what I'm getting at is, before you jump into your past life regression, yes, it's safe because it's your energy. It's all you, it's all your issues, but you need to ask yourself, am I ready to see these things?
Absolutely.
And are you ready to address them and look at them and, acknowledge them? Even if you don't have a fix for it, being aware is the first step. And it's very important to be ready to take that step. Do you have anything to say on that?
I agree. I mean, when people are feeling more drawn to this kind of work, it takes a sense of courage to go back there. It really does. It just like it does with dealing with any emotion or situation that maybe we're confused about or we don't feel great about or something like that. It takes a lot of courage and to address things. So I think it's a very beautiful thing. I think curiosity is beautiful. Curiosity also leads us down some of the most interesting paths. But at the end of the day, it's if you're feeling called to this kind of work or you're feeling pulled in a certain direction, there's generally a reason why. And I think that in life, with these kinds of things, we wouldn't be drawn to it if we couldn't handle it. So I think that a lot of people have a really beautiful strength that they can see in tapping into these situations. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you talked a bit earlier about Akasha and
Hmm.
Akashic records. Um, would you like to elaborate a little bit on how that relates to past life regression?
Absolutely. Oh man, Akasha.
It's okay, take your time. We have plenty of time today.
It's such a it's so unique to me. I think that one of the biggest things with Akasha is respect, and I really love that about it. I think respect is very important with energy work and exploring different parts of ourselves. So I think it lays a beautiful foundation there. You could get it in other work too, but you basically have to ask permission, and you're only supposed to look into your Akashic records, and you're not supposed to look into other people's unless you ask. So, but essentially, Akasha is a frequency of energy that when you learn how to tap in, which that book is a good resource of, you know, saying saying a certain iteration of words and everything like that. You can ask questions and you can explore basically to your heart's content, and you can really just write down these questions and ask and see, and it kind of echoes back to you. So it's really tapping into a certain frequency, like Reiki is a certain frequency. Like there's so many different frequencies that we can tap into for information. It's just kind of attuning to it, and once you get there, you you get newfound awarenesses. So that's why I like it.
Thank you for sharing. I don't know that much about Akasha.
Hmm.
I'm familiar with the term. I heard that the word Akasha roughly means spirit.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that's about as much as I know about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's all just different, like different versions of it. I think that a lot of people practice in different ways, and it's just a frequency. It's not necessary to do this kind of work. It's just it's like there's spirituality and connection and all these things. It's just different. It's like art. There's different mediums, and no one is greater than another, in my opinion. It's just different ways of acts. It's different doors. So.
For sure. I love that analogy of the art as well. Everyone does it differently, and that's what the
Mhm.
beauty is in it. And the same thing with your past lives. Everybody gets here differently, but that's beautiful because we get
Mhm.
to it the way we're meant to understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are some effective techniques for releasing past life traumas and integrating lessons into the present?
Mm. Releasing is all about, going into, with like body scanning or maybe scanning the energy field and finding the tighter areas of energy. And we were talking about a bit earlier of just breathing a bit more life in there, and through noticing, and through, because essentially, like, past life traumas are just like a bundle of unprocessed energy, and that's why we can feel very very weighed down by them, because they're very like uh they can feel very neglected or whatever the energy is there. And it's really energy that just needs to be processed. And it might feel bad, but it's just a part of you that wants to be loved, I think. So it's integrating it as just continuing to breathe life into it. And you're saying mantras can be helpful, like you are a part of me, and listening to like how we were talking about with Akasha, things echo back to you. You can start to talk to this energy that you might be feeling and reassure it. And that this could be energy that could be tied to like a mother from another generation or from another life, and just working on generating a relationship with it, I think, is the key. And slowly it just becomes the integration part. Integration is just allowing something to become a part of you again, rather than hushing it away. And it's one of my favorite parts about healing work because it's the hardest part, but it's so important. And so I think that that's the key, is just generating a relationship and having compassion. Sorry, long-winded, but
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Compassion is very important. Forgiveness as well. A lot of times you have to forgive yourself. And when you said these past life issues are like a bundle of energy, I imagine like a giant knot, like all tied together.
yeah.
So you want to, again, with those tendrils that are reaching into your current life, look at that knot, say, okay, where did this start and how can I untie it? And just start working with it. It will take time. It's a process, but it's a healing process. And that's not a bad thing, really. And sometimes just looking at these issues and, saying, I forgive you, it's okay, that is all that is needed sometimes. And I also feel like this past life regression ties a lot into shadow work
Yeah.
and inner child healing too. It kind of touches everything.
It does. Yeah. It's one of my teachers taught me. I think it's like Honopono. I forget what it is exactly. But it's I'm sorry, I love you. Like, please forgive me. Gosh, I'm sorry. Um, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And it's an iteration of just going. You can just, it's an energy practice of looking at something and saying, I'm sending that energy to it, and it just sends a lot of positive energy to it. And it does work because sometimes we all need different iterations of that when we're working with these bundles of energy. So
Very true. I've heard of that. I don't know too much about it, so I can't really speak on it, but it's something to look into as well with that forgiveness piece. It's very important in a lot of cases. Not everyone has the same issue. So I'm not going to say that everyone just needs to forgive, because we're not one size fits all, but
I agree. I 100% agree. It's not always forgiveness, and forgiveness. It's not, it's not applicable to everybody. I'll say that.
very true.
Yeah.
Okay. I have some more techniques for past life regression to share with us. We have plenty of time today. So one technique that my father actually taught me accidentally, I want to say, is to and it was like a relaxation thing. Basically, you go into a meditation and you imagine walking down a path and you see 3 trees with a door in each one, or you see 3 doors, and one is past, present, and future, like the 3 card spread. You're gonna open one and walk onto the timeline and look at everything you've experienced in your past life. And you can do this for your present life. I don't recommend doing it for your present life. I tried it once and it was quite an experience.
Oh, really?
Because you see yourself where you're at from like a 3 third person,
Mm-hmm.
which
Oh,
is like,
interesting.
yeah. And then you can look at the future, which could be divination, which is what we're
Mm-hmm.
all about here at Mystic Sense.
I Wow,
But
that's
yeah,
really interesting. I didn't think about the walking into the present door. I
yeah,
can imagine a lot comes in with for me a lot would come in with acceptance and being like this is now. Because
yeah, it
I
was,
love to look at the future and the past. Now is like an everyday practice of like we are here.
yeah.
So
Like now I recommend that. I do recommend that for everyone to just try it out and see what they see.
mhm,
But the present can be quite interesting.
mhm,
You know, and because it's you and you have to basically take a honest, hard look in the mirror and say, who am I right now?
mhm,
And the nice thing about the present and the future is that if you don't like what you see, you can still change that.
mhm. Absolutely.
But the past is the past. So like the past is like showing us where we came from and why we're who we are. And then the present is like, do I like me right now? Do I need to change me? Am I happy with me? And where are you going from there?
Right. Absolutely. It's very empowering to do that too. So as opposed to like the future is set in stone, it's only going to happen this way, and I think some things are a little bit more um, set in than others, just because of patterns and habits and everything. But I really do believe in the empowerment of looking at now and looking at maybe a stream of energy that we're creating, and it's really amazing the power that we can have in our lives.
Definitely. We're creating all the time.
Hmm.
And that simple exercise, just imagine walking down a path, seeing three trees, open the door, step into one. Um, it really puts a lot into perspective. You can imagine them as doorways, you can imagine them as portals. You don't have to use a tree,
Hmm.
but when you are doing that, you do want to leave the same way that you went in.
Good
I just
idea.
want to add that. Yeah. If you walk in the middle door, walk out the middle door. If you walk into the
Mhm,
future, walk out of the future. You know, you want to walk back to yourself. And that integration, you can pick up things and bring it with you.
mhm.
Like visualize that as part of it. And that can help integrate the whole process as well.
Right. Wow, that's amazing.
Do you have any other techniques you'd like to talk about for how people can do this?
That was just such a gem. Thank you. I'm excited to try that. And I I just think that in terms of past lives, we're talking about still, correct? Or it could be future or present.
Um, I feel like the topic is about past lives, so we want to focus on the past life.
Okay.
But like my understanding is that time is not really real. So like they're all the same thing to me, in my opinion. Uh, so
I know,
it
I'm with you on.
blurs.
Yeah, I think that um, it can be really helpful just to I think meditation is a really powerful tool. I think that just the art of noticing too as well. Oftentimes there can be I'm a big fan of signs, and some people believe in them and some people don't. So, but if you keep seeing a certain animal, or like a crow, you keep seeing this one crow, or you keep hearing certain noises, like just when you start to see the reoccurrence in your life, kind of um like just listening to what that brings up for you. If it brings up a certain emotion, are you feeling more fearful when this do you feel more comforted when this sign is coming up? I think that those can also be um, a little bit, maybe a little bit more of a simple way of just noticing how perhaps past realities are reflecting in our daily lives.
The symbols are very powerful. That's a
Hmm.
really good point to bring up. And when you were saying that about the crow, sometimes these symbols, they not only relate to your past life, but they're connections with other people as well from a past life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really interesting to explore.
Yeah,
And they're
that's
different for each person.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so our next question is, can you share stories or examples of individuals who have experienced healing through past life regression?
Yes. I have seen a lot of there's a lot of past life work that I've done with clients through they've had past lives in Egypt. And I always find that to be really interesting because I everyone's different. I don't want to share anybody's story too much. But I would say that an example is like, for instance, I was working with a client in her past life. She had like one of her first lives, she had this royal life, like royal family, got married, arranged marriage, very young age. And so now through all of these lifetimes are like this certain relationship with partners and power dynamics. And essentially a lot of this um patterning throughout her lives has gone back to here. So a lot of her work has been looking at that and looking at, why the relationship was so strong at that time to keep impacting. So, and once again, that goes back to, there's past life trauma there and releasing that. And integration can take a long time, and that's okay. And but I think really the key that is just seeing consistent results. And her life completely changed, completely, you know doesn't have the same patterns with feeling overpowered by men, doesn't feel small compared to them because of the arranged marriage thing. Because in this life, it wasn't an arranged marriage. It was just feeling like she had to be with a certain kind of man, for instance. So I think that tracing it back, it's really amazing how it can kind of break up the energy and the patterning. So, and also looking at a lot of times when in past lives there's karma as well. So it's like the karma, if it can continue for a little bit. So it's also looking at the karma there as well. So it can be very complex. But I've really seen a big change in I think like sense of power with my clients and understanding themselves and almost feeling like more complete in who they are. And like, she had this royal past life, and it's like you're still that person, you still have that, you still had that experience. So I think just a lot more acceptance and a lot more power, I would say, is self power.
Very true. It is empowering to say, I was that person,
Hmm.
and I'm still that person today, just because you're in a different lifetime, a different period, um, doesn't mean that you are not the same soul that experienced these things.
Hmm.
So I personally do not do past life readings. I find this very interesting. I've done them on myself and I've done
Hmm.
them with a friend, but that was the extent of it. So it's really fascinating for me hearing someone else who works with the public and people they don't know doing this kind of work. So thank you for sharing your experience. Before we wrap up, I want to just mention briefly archetypes.
Hmm.
Um, would you say you've noticed a certain archetype following people through multiple lifetimes? and like how to break that.
Like an archetype, and what exactly do you mean?
Like, for example, I feel like I have a lot of the warrior. In a lot
Mm,
of my past lives, I've been like fighting things and been like fighting against stuff. And like I would view that as one archetype that has followed me through multiple lifetimes. Um, for example, if I don't want to have to fight things anymore, how would
yeah,
I break away from that warrior archetype and, maybe be the healer or something?
right. Yeah, once again, back to these ingrained the ingrained patterns, right? And I think archetypes are really they're created from these ingrained patterns and past experiences. So I think the first step is, honoring, for instance, the warrior in you, how strong the warrior is, and for instance, if you have the archetype, I do see archetypes. For instance, I was just talking about the client who has the princess archetype, which has its own bundle of energy. Of the princess archetype is very, you know, very original. But I think, for instance, with the warrior archetype, it is, for instance, if you're feeling like you have to fight everything, what is the counter of that? Of what am I going to choose today to just kind of balance it out a little bit? So today, like today, we might choose peace more, and that might be the intention. And it does feel against nature if that's the way that you've been living for lifetimes, but it's not about fixing yourself or trying to make yourself into something that you're not. If you are a warrior that wants more peace in your life, it's really, I think, with peace, it's or not having to fight as much, it's waking up and choosing to choose it, and just kind of staying with it as much as you can, and also forgiving yourself, because if that is your nature and your archetype, and you're this strong warrior, it's going back and forth between acceptance and then just giving yourself a little nudge. So that's what I believe.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's not on our agenda, but I just
it's okay.
wanted you mentioned, the princess, and that was her energy, and that she's carried through lifetimes. I just thought,
Hmm.
that's interesting because I feel like we all have an archetype or multiple
Hmm.
that we do carry through, and sometimes people don't like the archetype that they have.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so
understand.
find what made you feel that way as well.
Absolutely.
Um, Yes, excellent. So I feel like that wraps up our discussion today. Is there anything you'd like to add on the topic of past lives before we wrap up in our conclusion?
I would just say, it's very beautiful work. However you choose to go about it, just feel free to give yourself plenty of breaks, and go get a snack, or go get some ice cream, go outside, and it can get very it can get very interesting, and it's okay to take breaks sometimes and just be like a human being, like uh maybe just relaxing and watching a TV show. So it's all balance. So that's what I would say. And it's a recommendation to myself because I get very caught up in the work as well.
For sure. Thank you, Sienna. Thank you so much for this guidance and this discussion today. So I want to mention to everyone watching this, Sienna is known as Gaia Healing, right, on Mystic
Yeah.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yes. And her profile is linked in the description of this video, so make sure to go check it out. If you would like a reading on your past lives, or you'd like to talk to her about any spiritual topic, get a session with her, definitely check out the link in the description to connect with Sienna on mysticsense.com. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers tonight?
Just I love you guys. I hope you're having a beautiful day or night wherever you are. And I'm on Mystic Sense if you'd love to connect. So
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure discussing this fascinating topic with you. And
likewise.
I hope our viewers feel the same. And we look forward to seeing you in our next Mystic Sense series. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.